there's a point where, as an herbalist, we have to recognize where herbs aren't always enough, that herbs aren't always the magic bullet, that holistic herbalism is much more than just using plants. And what I mean by this is that if we look at vitalist traditions of medicine, that they incorporate many approaches and remedies for healing of people. Some examples of this would be things like diet and food and nutrition, right? That certainly food, if we can think of one thing that determines our state of health or lack of health, a lot of times it can come down to the food that we eat every day. And this is why, if we look at Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, even systems of Western medicine, traditional Western medicine, that food and diet was a huge part of it. Okay, we're gonna put you on a look at Greek medicine. They were super into fasting. Hippocratic medicine, they were really into fasting and cleansing and things like that. Ayurveda, of course, has become very, popular in terms of panchakarma and their cleansing protocols, in that there is an approach to food and diet that is very, very healing. And certainly, as I was mentioning earlier, with the whole state of food in our modern world, I believe every herbalist needs to, at the very least, be a decent nutritionist, and not in the sense of counting calories and, having it be like mathematical, but, to me, it's more learning how to coach people and yourself in what it means to have just a healthy relationship to food and to eat a good natural diet. As much as you possibly can. Certainly, I know that it's not. There's, I think more socio-political issues around access and availability for people to have access to good food. But in general, the point, I guess, that I'm trying to make is that diet and food and nutrition is a major part of vitalist systems of medicine, and that's really beyond what we tend to think of as herbalism. So a really good example of this is how there are a number of conditions that can be healed by the removal of a food intolerance or a food allergy. A lot of autoimmune conditions, chronic digestive issues, a lot of joint pain, even things like fatigue, anxiety, depression. Sometimes those things are triggered by a food. And it doesn't matter how many herbs you give them to calm them down, or how many anti-inflammatories you give them, or how many digestive remedies you give them. If it's a food they're eating causing the problem, then the herbs aren't enough. Similar thing is true with nutrient deficiencies. If someone has, say, for example, a lot of muscle spasms and tension and constriction, and maybe they're also, maybe they're a little nervous, anxious, and things like that. If that's all because of a magnesium deficiency, again, it doesn't matter how many antispasmodics and nervines and sedatives you give them. If it's because of a nutrient deficiency, the herbs aren't going to cut it alone. And so this is why, from my perspective, vitalism, the vitalist approach is beyond just using herbs and has to incorporate things like diet, things like nutrition, things like your lifestyle, and considering things like your sleep, like your stress management, like your emotional and mental health. Many vitalist traditions incorporate approaches such as fasting, rejuvenation protocols, ways of balancing and maintaining and strengthening your constitution. And so there's a larger ecosystem to the vitalist approach to medicine and healing, that of which herbalism is just one facet of. And I mention this because, as I said earlier, that vitalism really is about a way of living in accordance with nature. And I think that as herbalists, this is one thing that, well, first we need to learn how to do ourselves as best we can, and living in harmony with the cycles of the seasons and the daily rhythms and the weather and the ecosystem in which we live and things like that. But that's also something that we can coach and train and support our clients in doing in terms of understanding their own unique nature and how to, live their life in a way that will help support their unique constitutional balance, their unique inner ecosystem, so to speak, through giving them really great, manageable, quick, easy to implement tools that just support their health and well-being. And I think that's one of the last important points that I really like to make about a vitalist approach to healing is that we don't have to wait until we're sick in order to work with holistic medicine. That there's an approach of not just healing us when we're sick, but rejuvenation, right? That just because we're symptom free doesn't mean we don't have something to work on, that there's things that we can do to further optimize and refine and kind of dial in our health and well-being so that we're not just symptom or disease free, but that we feel vital, that we feel rejuvenated, that we feel that good energy when we wake up in the morning, that we have happiness in our heart, that we have clarity in our mind, that we have something, greater that we're striving towards, that we're working towards, a goal or an aspiration or a dream that we're reaching for, that we ultimately, I think, have a higher purpose, that we have the energy and the vitality to heal our trauma, to heal our past, to overcome the struggles and the trials and the tribulations that we face, and that we're not so exhausted and burned out and that we just can't handle anything, and it all kind of like just washes over us, and we're just floundering. The vitalist approach is about being able to face our life and move through our life with strength and with humility and with compassion and with the ability to look at ourselves and heal ourselves and ultimately become the best version of ourselves, because I think that's what nature wants. That's what the earth wants. That's what we as a part of nature and the earth need for ourselves to heal ourselves on a deeper level and to ultimately contribute to, in our own way, maybe in our own little corner, make this world a little bit of a better place, even if that's just being kind to people, So these are just some of my thoughts on vitalism and how it reaches beyond herbal medicine, and how hopefully you can start to think a little more holistically, especially for those of you that are working with clients. Start incorporating some of these other approaches into your work in terms of some of the things that I looked at, or just for yourself, think about that harmony with nature and what maybe you can do to live in greater accordance with the natural world.